I work about 80 hours a day, so I get to forget about my sexual preference. I get to forget about that sort of painful part of being gay and then what that is. So I think residency was almost a gateway for me to escape. Everything sort of just came crashing down because the professional life didn't work, and then my personal life was a disaster. So what the hell was I doing?
The third culture is what emerges at the intersection between your culture of origin and the other cultures by which you've been shaped. Beyond Asian is a place for stories of global nomads with Asian roots brought up in diversity. Together, we explore the interplay of our pasts with our presents and our relationships with the multiple cultures we move in. These are more than conversations about Asian identity. They're portraits of whole people, what keeps them up at night, what their hearts long for, and the impact they hope to have on their communities. I'm your host, Sen Jan, a third culture kid born in China, raised in Canada, and currently based in Berlin. This series is a first step towards making peace with my own Asian background, and it's my hope that other third culture Asians will hear themselves reflected in our stories. What are the realities of a gay orthopedic surgeon in the Canadian medical community? In episode 5, I'm speaking with Ang, who talks about leaving straight passing behind and what he's learning from therapy. So Ang, you and I have known each other for quite some time. We met on the first day of occupational therapy and physical therapy school in the year of 2009, I believe. And I remember that you and I think maybe 2 other people were members of the Asian community in that program, which was quite a small program. So even though we've known each other for quite some time, and I've heard the bits and pieces of your story over the years, I'd like you to take us through the beginning of it, of how it all started when you arrived in Canada and how you came to be in the place that you are now.
Yeah. So to start off with, I am in my second year of training, which is called fellowship in orthopedic surgery, and then I came to Canada when I was 12, and from China, and then I immigrated with my parents at the age of 12, and then at that time I had to learn French first and then English later on. Afterwards, I managed to get into a bachelor degree at McGill University in physical therapy, and then that's when we got to know each other throughout the...
I remember the first day that we met.
Yeah, so it's through sort of the SCREW projects and then all the courses that we took together.
I remember the bars.
Oh my God, yeah, can you imagine all the crazy thing we did back in the days? So that's when I had the pleasure to get to know you, Sen. And then afterwards, I pursue medicine after graduation in physical therapy. And then through sort of the normal kind of a pathway, I end up graduating from medicine, got into orthopedic residency at the University of Montreal, and then eventually complete the residency. And then I have completed my first fellowships in hand and wrist surgeries in Vancouver at the UBC University, and then now I'm completing my second year of fellowships in sort of elbow and shoulder surgeries in Ottawa. Yeah, so I am a orthopedic surgeon. So we are a type of specialized surgeons who targeted musculoskeletal issues, namely fractures, but it can also encompass anything that goes from soft tissue damage in the hands or any soft tissues issues to sports medicines, to oncologies, to pediatrics. So the scope practice is quite vast, but majority of the time we're dealing with musculoskeletal so anything that's related to bone to sort of soft tissues issues, in medicine.
Sounds like you've done a lot of schooling.
Yes, that is correct. And still going. And still going.
And still going. How many years of schooling have you done since you went into university for the first degree?
After the bachelor degree, I had additional 4 years of medical school, and then followed by 5 years of fellowship, 5 years of residency training. So that amounts to 9 years, and then afterwards 2 years of fellowship. So that's 11 years. So basically, on my 11th year of training after a bachelor degree.
What's one of the most interesting things that you've seen or participated in orthopedic surgery?
I think the most memorable ones are the traumatic cases where, because we were trained in a sort of tertiary centers for trauma, which means that all the big car accidents, all the sort of high velocity injuries do get sent to our hospital, and we're sort of the first where resident, you are usually sort of at the forefront of, patient evaluations, especially in orthopedic surgeries. The one that I could remember was, car accident with multiple sort of limb injuries. And sometimes you have to make really good decisions or quick decisions to, save the limb or save the life of the patient. So there's a lot of chaos in terms of sort of managing a traumatic patients. So that's always an experience to sort of interact with other specialists and then in the same goal of saving the patient. And sometimes things can get pretty drastic. I can't really, details any sort of particular injuries or particular cases for patient's confidentiality, but it's really not to sort of romanticize or sort of making it more sensational than what is portraying on the TV, but it is sometimes very gruesome as the patient walks in, and you kind of just have to stop the bleeding, making sure that there's IV access, find out what the problem is, and then sort of send the patient quickly to the OR as quickly as possible. So there were some circumstances that we have to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a very high stress, quick decision kind of process that you need to go through. You never know what you're going to get and how severe it's going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
You were talking about how sometimes it's quite gruesome, quite traumatic, these injuries. How do you keep that separate from your non-doctor life? Or do you? How do you see these kinds of things day after day and not let it be disturbing to you?
That's actually a really good question. I think as any professionals, we all have to learn or develop any sort of useful or mature defense mechanisms to sort of ward off some of the most traumatic thing we see on a daily basis. And then for me, one of the things that I find it's very useful to do to dissociate sort of myself from that daily sort of stress, it's to meditate. I think that's something I learned after having a mental breakdown towards the end of my training. I just find that in the beginning, it's not as obvious as one might think to sort of carry that burden after work. I think in the beginning, everybody wants to be strong. Everybody wants to sort of hold up that image of, oh, we're a doctor, we're not supposed to be sick, especially when we're talking about, mental illness. So it's not something that's very talked about, at least a couple of years back. Now I think there's more of a general awareness of physician well-being, but back a few years ago, I think it wasn't really the case. So I think I just accumulated a lot of those shadows, if you want, from seeing and then also experiencing a lot of sort of hardships during the work environment, that I had a mental breakdown, and then that sort of pushed me to reevaluate a lot of things. And then luckily I discovered a lot of other interesting activities, like, I started meditating. I find that's a tremendous experience to be able to dissociate myself on a daily basis. So that's one thing. And then also, of course, being surrounded sort of by a strong social support definitely helps, whether it's family or friends. And then also just physical activities in general. I think having those regular scheduled activities, including like a community, like when we go to the gym or CrossFit gym or what have you, or yoga. I think intrinsically they come with sort of a community where it's like similar people, and a lot of them are not in medicine. So that, I think, gives me the opportunity to step back, to really be like, oh, okay, well, I just did a CrossFit class with this awesome dude who's in finance, and then I get to learn a little bit about what his daily stress, what his daily life is, and then that's good.
You mentioned that you had to develop a more mature defense mechanism to how to react to the stressful situations. And part of that defense mechanism was to meditate and also be with people who were not in medicine. So to not always be bouncing the same kind of energy or the same kind of stories and problems back and forth without no way of letting it go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. What do you think is something that would help other doctors to also develop their methods of keeping themselves healthy?
I think everybody is quite unique in the sense that I don't think there is one solution, sort of the solution to end all, physician stress, just because every stressors are so individual dependent, in the sense that they're so multifaceted, and then I don't think there is one solutions that can be applied to all. So I think it's a sort of a difficult answer to give. I think one of the things that I think, regardless what the stressors are or what the challenges are, it's to sort of take a step back and, to give yourself space, whether it's taking a break from work, whether it's to sort of reach out to either family, friends, or even, a professional such as a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I think giving the space will sometimes allow ourselves to have a more better understanding of our stress in a way. For sure, if that doesn't work, there's always, the professionals who can help us through, all type of mental stress. But that's sort of beside the point. All I'm saying is that I think for me, whatever that you can do to take a step back, whether that method it's meditations, counseling, or simply just going on vacations, as simple as that.
Yeah, to stop the constant barrage of working, being in this tunnel of always doing the same thing and looking in only one direction, and letting yourself be on break.
Yeah,
which is difficult for doctors.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I remember that you were telling me the story a couple of years ago, and I thought this was a really good example of how you felt like you had to keep on working even though you yourself were not well, and that you still push yourself to work. Can you tell that story?
Yes, I had a partial meniscectomy on my right knee during my residency. So basically, it's a small surgery to shave a tear that had happened in my meniscus, secondary to probably a fall that I sustained during a workout. Sort of, it's in the knee joint.